Hey guys, welcome back to How to Roll Dice. I'm Josh. A couple of quick things today, one being a bit of a studio update. You can probably already tell from the shelves behind me, but I'm going to touch on some organization changes. And two being a new purchase that I've made, which is not a board game, because in the past I've mentioned that I'm not going to be buying any new board games, although I've semi-resolved that dilemma with, again, the shelving behind me. But this, in fact, is a new RPG purchase. So let's start with the shelves behind me, which again are probably pretty obvious, as is the framing of this shot. I know you guys love when I talk about my studio changes in my camera gear so much, but I'm trying to narrow down for the sake of consistency, and since consistency sort of like is a big component of quality, I'm trying to narrow down how I shoot these, right? I'm trying to narrow down, and not just this, but for the talking head segments of my reviews, which will one day return, I'm trying to narrow down exactly how I'm going to do it. Where's the camera going to be? What height? What angle? What lens? How's it going to look? At least for this shot, right? Me sitting at the table. And I've already moved the microphone to the table. I mentioned when I made this change that I used to spend 10, 15, 20 minutes every time I went to record a video trying to get the microphone boom overhead so it was just in the right spot, pointed at just the right angle, but not in frame, and it was a constant hassle. I always got slightly different tones because of the positioning of the mic relevant to my face, and like, is it exactly at the right angle that it was at last time I recorded? That was a huge nuisance. This has saved me over the last maybe 3 or 4 months since I made that change, maybe longer. This has completely changed the way I make films. This has saved me probably dozens, if not like near 100 hours of fiddling around with that stupid microphone boom. And it just takes away this whole initial stress layer that would get triggered at the beginning of setting up for a video, dealing with that stupid microphone boom. So this is a huge improvement. Now I'm trying to figure out the camera end of things. I have a brand new camera that I love. I have brand new lenses that I love. I have plenty of tripods that I can use to set it up however I like. The main thing is I'm in the process of trying to lose weight. I've gotten quite chubby and large over the duration of COVID. I shouldn't have said COVID. Now this video is dead in the water, but it's been said. So because of that, having any kind of an angle that's not slightly overhead reveals my very ugly neck that I'm working on getting rid of. It's even worse so now that I've shaven. Normally the beard hides it. But I do like having a slightly below eye level camera angle because it gives me a bit of a domineering presence. That's kind of a thing that you learn when you go through how to take photos and videos. Overhead makes you look small and cute and petite. It's great for like women because it makes them look less large, which a lot of women don't want to feel large, unless of course they're athletes, in which case you shoot them from kind of an upward angle, but you have to do it in a finessed kind of way. With guys, you almost always want to shoot them at an upward angle unless they're really, really conscious about their size, because it makes them look bigger and powerful, and a lot of guys like to look that way. So I prefer to have a slightly upward angle because it gives an air of authority, and since I'm trying to teach you things and give you reviews, having that sort of slight visual presence baked into the angle of the camera shot is a good thing, I feel. Now, the downside to that is if I'm using the lens I want to use, which is this lens, which is my most cinematic looking lens, which just means looks best and highest quality in my opinion, and many people's opinions, and I'm not going to go into why, you lose a lot of table space, right? I only have, if I take this, which is a regular letter size sheet booklet, and I put it on its side, you can see the edge of it here, so that's about 8 inches. If I turn it long ways right there, you lose just the very tip of it. Maybe you see just the edge of it. So that's 11 inches. So I have less than a foot of table space here to take advantage of, but that's only for this shot. And this shot is only ever really meant to be me sitting here talking to you with maybe a couple of things on the table in front of me. So I think it's fine for that. Also, I can angle it and sort of position the frame just so. There's a spider slowly descending into frame over here. I don't know, maybe you guys can see it like right in this zone. It's going to focus on my face. If I do this and then maybe that, maybe you can see it. There's a spider right over here. I don't know. This is getting silly. But anyways, this frame I really like because it goes edge to edge on the shelves. It chops off only the very tippy top of the shelves, which I have nothing of importance up there, and you see right to the top of the lowest shelf, which I now have nothing on. And that's because I've completely rearranged my shelves behind me after watching a handful of shut up and sit downs videos where the individual team members went through their top 100-ish board games in their collection. All of their collections were stacked horizontally. And I'm guessing they do that. I mean, if anybody knows how to store board games, it's these guys. I'm guessing they do that because they value a game not becoming disheveled in the box over the risk that a game could be over compressed by having larger games stacked on top of it for an extended period of time. Now, if they've made that assessment over the 15 or 20 years that they've been doing gaming stuff, I trust it. And so as much as it doesn't appeal to my eye from like a OCD perspective, not to belittle people that have a serious, mental issue, or some people, serious to some extent anyways, just because it doesn't look as nice to me because everything isn't lined up in a perfect row, I feel like it makes more sense. One, I've opened up the entire top of this shelf, which again, you can't see, but there's very little up there, and the entire bottom row, which again, there's almost nothing there, meaning I've compressed my collection almost 50%, which is amazing. The other thing is now 100% of my games, barring like 4 or 5 titles, which intentionally are games I don't play and don't care about, is in the shop. 100% of my collection is in the shop. Even if I add new titles, I can bump out less popular games I don't really play that are just in here to fill space. I can bump those out and still keep my essentially what is my collection, the games I actually play, in frame. And I feel like that's a lot better to fill the entire background of my shot with that versus, corners of my basement and like random extra space that doesn't really appeal to the eye, but is just there because the frame doesn't fit around what I want it to. I feel like this is pretty solid. Now, again, the downsides being you lose a lot of table space, though it's not necessary for this type of shot. You frame the background perfectly, but I have a lot of headroom above me. This is called headroom. My head is not touching the top of the frame, which means I'm not filling the frame. And since I'm the subject, that's not the best way to frame something in most cases for this type of thing where you're just a person talking to a camera. You want to fill a good amount of the frame. You don't want to feel far away and small in the frame. But because I often have objects on the table in front of me, you do want a little bit of left and a little bit of right. And I like the idea that the shot again lines up with that top shelf. So I'm just going to have to deal with having this extra space around me. I can fill in these sections down here with stuff on the table like I had earlier. I had this standing up here and I have the book that I'm going to talk about in a minute right there. So this works because I can fill in down here. I can't really fill in up here, but oftentimes I use that for like putting in little word blurbs or game rankings off of Board Game Geek and things like that. So I think this space up here is going to be fine, and I'll be able to utilize it and make sense of it. And this I can fill in, and I'm nice and centered here. So that's the new framing. I'm going to stick with this framing. I'm literally going to put markers on the floor so my tripod is always in the exact same position, always lined up the exact same way. The frame that the actual physical frame that I've built around myself, the top shelf, the side edges, and the table means that I can always line the shot up perfectly just by simply lining the angle of the camera up to those borders. So that's solid. But yeah, so this is going to be the shot for this sort of type of talking bit, whether it's in a review or whatever. From now on, this is what I'm going to look like. I also feel like I look best. The lighting is really good. This lens is really crisp. But anywho, the purchase that I wanted to talk about is this RPG system here, which is Big Eyes Small Mouth, BESM. You might not be familiar with it. It was first published back in 97, I want to say. First edition was 97, second edition was 99 or 2000. I played second edition not anywhere near when it came out. I played second edition in like the 2010s, 2012s, somewhere in that window, and I really, really enjoyed it. It uses something called the tri-stat system, which means instead of having a list of 6 or more stats like your intelligence, your dexterity, your strength, all of those, the ones you're used to from D20 type systems, there are only 3 stats in this, and it's body, mind, and spirit. And everything is discerned or sort of deduced from body, mind, and spirit, your attack value, your defense value, your HP. The way that you get into the more sort of nuanced characteristics of your character, like your special abilities, whether it be spells or special attacks, or do you have a giant mecha that you can ride around in or that you transform into? Can you summon a swarm of animals to do certain types of things? Or can you turn into a swarm of bats because you're a vampire? What can you do while you're in that form? Can you fly? How fast can you fly? Can you hover, or can you move at like the speed of light? Basically teleportation. All of those things are decided by you and can be added to your character using an amazing point buy system where you use build points that in some cases convert into different types of points. For example, X number of build points converts into X number of mecha points, which you can then use to build out a giant robot. Maybe it's just a small little robot that follows you around. Maybe it's a human-sized robot. Maybe it's a robot you can actually climb into. Maybe it's a robot that an entire team of people can climb into. Does a robot get together and merge with other robots? Does it have guns? Can it fly? Can it, whatever. I keep coming back to the robot thing because as you can see, it is an anime style game. Now, that doesn't mean that it can only be used for anime plot lines or settings. It can be used for any setting. It's just the system is built around sort of an anime and manga stylistic vibe, like with that in mind. So a lot of the rules sort of feel like they were made or created with that in mind. But you can use it for any setting. You never even have to have watched an anime or read a manga, and this system will work great for you. It uses D6. It's a very straightforward system to understand, or at least I should say second edition was when I was playing it. And I've always loved it, and I've wanted to get back into it. Now, like I was saying, first edition came out, I want to say 97, second edition was 99 or early 2000s. And then the creator of the game was working on third edition, but quickly realized that his company was not going to be able to publish third edition. They just didn't have the means, the market wasn't there, they were having financial troubles, and they wanted to find a publisher that could really move it as far as like, moving product goes. And they decided to go with, I want to make sure I get the name right because I always get it wrong, White Wolf Entertainment, which if you don't know or you weren't gaming back then, White Wolf Entertainment was huge as far as RPGs go because they published all of the World of Darkness stuff, which was like Vampire, Werewolf, Hunter, a bunch of different games that were really huge back then, and a really, really great setting and system of mechanics from what I've heard, though I've never gotten to play any of them. And they've been revamped into newer editions, though, again, from what I've heard from people who played them at the time, the classic editions, like first and second edition back then, were the peak of quality and gameplay. So it's a bummer that they're kind of like not what they once were, according to some people, but I think they are still out there in some rendition if you want to go check them out. But anyways, the creator of the game decided to sell the rights of the game to White Wolf Publishing or White Wolf Entertainment for third edition. Now, I don't believe they made a bunch of changes. They basically took what he wanted third edition to be and published it. Maybe they did make some changes, but for the most part, it was what he wanted it to be. It just wasn't his anymore. And he kind of took a step away from game design, at least from RPG design. After a few years of simply being a player, he wanted to get back into the creating world, the creative space for games, and he came out with a couple of board games that were pretty successful. Then he actually got a position or got a contract working with Japanime Games and published a Sailor Moon game, board game again. And this kind of got him back into the realm of anime-themed games. And at that point, he really started tinkering around with some different modifications and changes that he would have loved to continue on past third edition with Big Eyes Small Mouth, though he was unable numerous times to get the rights back from White Wolf Publishing or White Wolf Entertainment. And so he sort of like didn't know what to do until at some point recently, I want to say 2018, 2019, like the stars aligned and things worked out and he was able to license Big Eyes Small Mouth back from White Wolf Entertainment along with Japanime, who he was sort of still working with at the time, and was able to fully release his sort of dream of fourth edition. What he always wanted to add into the game, changes that he didn't quite get there with third edition, but he finally hammered out things that he realized he actually preferred in second edition that he wanted to bring back. All of this is completely encapsulated inside of this book if you want to learn all of this, or I'm sure you could look it up online, but there's a full history of how this game came to be and how it almost never was inside of this book. But that's the game. This is fourth edition. I was at the comic store up in Nashua. I was perusing the RPG shelf because again, I know they have some titles that I want to buy for board games, but I'm not going to buy them yet, even though I have tons of space now. I'm going to wait till Gen Con. But I noticed they had a set of dice for Big Eyes Small Mouth 4th edition. And I was like, oh, I wonder if they have a copy of 2nd edition here. I'd love to get my hands on another copy of that. It's a small little paperback. And couldn't find one, but I did stumble across this large hardcover of 4th edition. And right next to it was the screen for 4th edition. And I was like, you know what? I'm never going to be able to get a copy of 2nd edition, just, unless I go and order one online or something. I don't really care for 3rd edition because now it's not the newest and it's not my favorite. So I might as well go with newest if I can't have my favorite, and that's 4th edition. And so I picked this up. I perused through the book very briefly. I can try to do a little flipping through the pages here thing for you, but it's going to be hard to do facing away from the camera. I don't know if it's going to be in focus, but here's my best for you. It's got lots of different styles of anime artwork in here. I don't know if this is all completely out of focus. I apologize if it is, but there's, traditional, there's digital, there's classic, there's a bunch of different styles of anime in there. There's how to create your character, there's how to create stories. This is the full core book. You don't need anything beyond this, though there are a couple of additional modules that came out after this. There's also a version of this 4th edition called Naked, which is funny because it's that same cover, but with all of the characters just in their underwear. And that's a stripped down version of the rules if you wanted to play that. But I'm really excited to dive into this. I want to see how, there's a whole section that lists the differences between third and the differences between second. It seems like there's a lot here that is similar to what I played, and the changes that were made seem like they're things that I would agree with. But I'm very excited to read through this and learn if it's a system that I'm actually going to jump into as quickly as possible, because as I've mentioned in the past, although I am running a D&D campaign right now, it is far from my favorite. This is one of my favorites, or at least second edition was. To show you real quick, here is the screen, the GM screen. There's going to be some glare on parts of this because of the angle, so I'm just going to give a little bit of a movement here so you can sort of see it. Here's a quick look at the other side. I love the design they went with for the other side of this, because again, that doesn't look anything like a GM screen for D&D. You can see there's a completely different style to what they're going for here. And then with the screen, they also tossed in this nifty little reference table, which is all the armor and weapons that are listed in the rulebook, in a nice little printed reference table. So I feel like that's just a nice little convenience to have. Yeah. So anyways, it's going to take me at least a few weeks to get through this, but I'm excited to have a copy of this. I think it's going to be a great system. I'm excited to run it at some point in the future. And this is what my shots are going to look like from now on as far as me sitting at this table. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're having a good one. I'm hoping to get my wargaming video up over the next few days. I'm almost done editing it. I actually wanted to get it up today, but I was running short on time and I wanted to get something up today. Also, this should have been a video I made before this one, but I don't know if you guys have noticed, I made some posts around on social media. I might have shared it here and there. I can't remember if I shared it everywhere, but Bryant and I are now the official social media managers for Captain Con, the local Rhode Island convention, gaming convention that happens every year at the Warwick Crown Plaza in the first weekend or so of February this year. I believe it's the first weekend in February. We've been attending for years. We've always tried to help out with photos, videos, volunteering, and now we're officially part of the Captain Con team. We are the official social media managers. So if you follow Captain Con on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, all of those posts, or most of those posts, are going to be us. We're in charge of all of that. So yeah. But anyways, I'll do a full video on that, talking about that and that experience so far. It's been really fun. We're really excited. But short of that, I hope you guys are doing well, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.